If Superman were real, I'm pretty sure we'd all be dead. Hey guys, it's Daniel, licensed therapist. Superman, such a legendary comic book character that we just accept without a second thought. But if you think about his psychology, well, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Imagine you had godlike powers. Would you end up having the worldview and the personality of a Mormon Boy Scout? I know I wouldn't, and I know you wouldn't either. But is it possible to provide a psychological explanation for Superman being the ultimate good guy? Yes, there is. And at the end, I'm going to give you a diagnosis for Superman that may shock you. So with Superman, we know what we have. He is as straight as he is strong. He could squash us all like bugs, but he chooses to dedicate a tremendous amount of his resources to saving and protecting us. He helps old ladies across the street and rescues dogs and squirrels, apparently. And this makes for a great hero and good stories, but what can we realistically expect psychologically from someone with near unlimited power? Well, we first need to talk about the basics of human psychology. Human beings are animals, and animals have very basic drives. There are many different psychologists with different theories on drives, but I like to go back to the basics and talk about the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is responsible for our most primal drives, known as the 4 F's: fighting, fleeing, feeding, and mating. Fighting is our defensive response. Fleeing is for escape and for safety. Feeding is the primal drive to nourish ourselves and to own stuff. And mating, well, you know. Humans can't just get all of these things with force. If you want to mate, you can't just, well, you know. If we can't just get it, we need to meet these needs in other ways. But as we increase in power, we are able to satisfy these drives, and then they manifest themselves in their purest form. You like eating? Well, go ahead, eat this $6 million banana. You want to flee? You want security? Well, you could have private security, gated communities, safe rooms, rooms with guns, bunkers, and private islands. You like to mate? Well, you get the idea. So in the context of Superman, how would he not just take all of this stuff? For us, it takes years of consequences to learn how to satisfy these needs in acceptable ways. Think of a young child. Children are balls of emotion and they can't control or regulate themselves. So it's the job of parents to help them learn how to do that by creating structure and boundaries. And the enforcement of those boundaries at the end of the day comes down to us just being bigger.
Now you're all in big trouble.
So how do you discipline a god? You can't ground him, you can't spank him, which is why Superman's childhood just feels ridiculous. And let's just say if little Clark wants ice cream, he's getting that ice cream.
Can he get this? And then we'll laugh. High five.
So if there is no way to enforce that structure through physical force, then what do we have to rely on as parents? Well, we need to talk to, connect to the child, reason with him, instill our thoughts and values by talking and appealing to their God-given ability to think through things. And if you're a parent like me, you're saying, yeah, that's not gonna work. It works a little bit, but mostly we need that structure. So Superman's childhood does not make sense. So if that's not happening, what would we expect from a psychologically coherent Superman? So there is this one scene from the 2013 movie Man of Steel where he's working as a busboy. And first of all, a busboy? He's Superman. I would expect him at least to be rich. But in any case, he's working as a busboy and the customer gets rowdy, so he tries to calm him down and the customer just pours a beer all over his head. And at this point, the whole audience expects him to do something. We expect something to happen. But what happens? He just leaves. And there is no way anyone would be able to just walk away as freaking Superman. And there are a lot of different versions of Superman. In the video game Injustice and the animated movie, Superman was tricked by Joker into killing his pregnant wife, Lois Lane. He then, in a fit of rage, kills the Joker and subsequently becomes a dictator and tyrant. In this world, he ruled with an iron fist. He wasn't evil for evil's sake by any means. He still had a semblance of his morals of doing good and justice, but this Superman just didn't take any crap from anyone. And for me, that is consistent with what I know about human beings. There's this one scene in the movie where he breaks into a club and there's all these people dressed as the Joker. And mind you, the Joker is the one that tricked him into killing Lois. So these people appear to be worshiping Joker, and one guy throws a beer bottle at him. Very similar to what happened in The Man of Steel. But do you know what this Superman did? He went absolutely nuts. And that is what I feel like is the most realistic version of Superman. A virtual god that wouldn't care about hurting people over his own agenda. Because why would he? What would be that psychological pin in the grenade? I don't see anything that strong because the drive and the emotions to do the opposite would just be too powerful. And I know there are people out there who do have power and still they don't become jerks. There's that famous viral clip of Keanu Reeves on the New York subway, and he's riding it like the rest of us, and he sees a lady and gives up his seat for her. So there are examples of people who are very rich, very famous, and powerful, doing normal things. But I have to say, I give up my seat all the time, and no one makes a hoopla about that. And nobody should. It only really stands out when the powerful do it, because we know that it is atypical of human nature.
Daniel, do your best to make the case for a psychologically coherent Superman.
All right, I'm gonna try to make the case. Well, Superman is an alien. What if he's not just alien in body, but he's alien in mind? Well, if that were the case, let me pitch you the supermind that would explain everything. Maybe he has the supernatural ability to deny his drives, supernatural patience, the supernatural ability to regulate his emotions as a child, which us normal kids didn't have, and the supernatural ability to hold onto the values established by his parents in the face of his power. Maybe Kryptonians are just stronger than human beings in this area. As far as we can tell, Superman had a very unremarkable childhood. Crash landed on the planet. He was found by Jonathan and Martha Kent. And I'm no expert on his childhood, but I don't think there's anything negative really being said about Jonathan and Martha. So from all we know, they were great parents. Is that enough to explain him holding back his power and denying those drives?
It's definitely a no for me, dog.
Not really, but that does lead us to another possibility. So let's look at Superman through the personality angle. There are a lot of personality tests out there, and I really like the Ocean model, also known as the Big 5 personality traits. So according to this model, there are 5 dimensions that represent key facets to human personality. And these are the 5: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. So how can we make a Superman utilizing these 5 traits? I would focus mostly on 4 of the 5. 2 traits that would need to be off the charts high would be conscientiousness and agreeableness. Conscientiousness can be described as being disciplined, having high impulse control and regulation. They act dutifully and strive for achievement. And agreeableness can be described as the general concern for social harmony. They're compassionate, cooperative, and empathetic. So this is really starting to sound like Superman. But not only does he need to have off the charts on those 2 things, but we would practically need 0 neuroticism and openness. Openness is a person's willingness to try new things. And trust me, you don't want freaking Superman all over the place trying new things. You want him to be very good, love people, and want to protect them, and be very closed off to the thought that humans are not valuable and worth protecting. And neuroticism is a tendency to experience negative emotions like anxiety, sadness, and anger. And if Superman were to have a hint of that, then we'd all be screwed. This collection of psychological traits is so rare and hangs on such a thin thread that I can see why Batfleck said this.
He has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
Yeah, I agree. If Superman was a normal guy and had a bad day, the world is over and we'd all be dead, like I said. So how likely is it for someone to have this kind of personality? I would say we are just as likely to see someone faster than a speeding bullet and more powerful than a locomotive.
So that's it? Daniel, you're not going to give us a Superman diagnosis?
Okay. Kryptonite held to my head. If I had to choose a diagnosis, and I don't think there is a diagnosis that really fits exactly what Superman is, but if I were to choose one, it would be obsessive compulsive personality disorder. No, not obsessive compulsive disorder or OCD as we commonly know it, but I'm talking about the personality disorder, which is a similar looking but completely different thing. Obsessive compulsive personality disorder has a few criteria: preoccupation with details, rules, and organization, perfectionism, excessive devotion to work and productivity, over conscientiousness and inflexibility about morality, ethics, and values, rigidity, and stubbornness. I feel like we can tell that some of these things would be really helpful in having Superman maintain his worldview and his values. And we would need all of this stuff to make him very resistant to the very powerful psychological forces pulling him to be a godlike dictator. So this could work. Where I feel like this diagnosis falls short for me is that OCPD has certain curious, interesting traits that don't really fit with Superman, such as the inability to throw things out that are worthless, miserly spending, being really cheap, and the reluctance to delegate tasks, which don't really feel like Superman to me. So it's not a home run, but it can't explain Superman's behavior. So there you go. Superman isn't just a Boy Scout. He has obsessive compulsive personality disorder. He's just basically a super anal guy. And thank God he is, or like I said, we'd all be dead. So that's my take on Superman. If you thought that was wild, check out my video I did on Batman. But what are your thoughts? I'd love to hear them in the comments down there. And while you're down there, please consider liking and subscribing. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I love you. Peace out.